Hey guys, we have a full moon in Libra in the next 24 or just over 24 hours. So on the 6th of this month, the 6th of April, and it will be the 5th in certain parts of the world. So if you are in California, it will be the 6th. And also it will be ahead if you're in Australia, I guess, as well. So looking at different time zones. The sun is always, as you can see here, is in opposition to the moon when it's a full moon. And when it's a new moon, the moon is on top of the sun. That's the way it works. So it's worth knowing if you're looking at a chart and your birth time as well, you can see where the moon is. You can see if you were born before a full moon or after a full moon, which is fantastic once you know where you're at. So what we have is Pluto is currently at 0 degrees up here. I'm going to run through the planets 0 degrees. And I will say this I'm looking at is horoscopes, astroseek.com. You see up here. It's worth checking that out because when you look at your chart, there are a few ways that I do it. I use astro.com and I also use astroseek, and they throw up different things. So it's really depending on what you like looking at. You can see if I run through the planets currently, we've got Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Saturn is at 3 degrees of Pisces here. We had huge changes. That was in the last month. This has gone on. We've got Neptune at 25 degrees of Pisces. Chiron is 15 degrees of Aries. It's halfway through. We've got the Sun in Aries and Jupiter in Aries. So you can see this conjunction going on here with these planets. So Jupiter and the Sun are going to meet in the coming days, about 4 days. We've got Mercury conjunct the North Node. And we've also got Uranus conjunct Venus at the moment, and they're all in the sign of Taurus. And then we've got Mars, which is in the sign of Cancer at the moment. This is Lilith, true Lilith. I won't bring that up, but I do like looking at the asteroids, and also I like looking at Lilith as well in mythology, the meaning and what it means to us in astrology. The moon is at 16 degrees of Libra when this happens, and the south node is in Scorpio up here. And you can see the aspects of this chart here. I'm going to show you my own chart in a moment, so it will give you some reflection of how to look at your own chart. And then I will go over to Solar Fire and we'll be able to see the planets move. So if you stay with me, you'll have some fun being able to look at that as well. So Sun opposition Moon, and then we have the Sun conjunct Jupiter, which is applying at the moment. So this aspect is material success, and it's also can widen our horizons when we have this happen. And it can also create vanity. If you have this in your chart, you may know this anyway. It can create vanity, but it's where we're aware of our success as well. We've got the Sun also semi-sextile to Uranus. So see here, the Sun, and there's Uranus. That's a semi-sextile, which is 30 degrees. And then we have the Moon opposition to Jupiter. So this is where we constantly have increasing needs for emotions, care, and comfort. And it's also where we can be dependent on external conditions as well, and where we need to find purpose in our lives. And then we have Mercury sextile Mars. So Mercury will be going retrograde later this month. And then also what we've got going on later in April is the eclipse season begins, but this will be for another video. And also with the Mercury, that will be for another video as well. So Mercury is sextile to Mars. So if you look at Mercury, it's in a sextile to Mars here. And this means that it's a harmonious aspect. It strengthens our thinking, and it gives us the ability to act and think fast which is very useful sometimes to think really quickly. They are also, this aspect, if you have it in your chart, the people that have this are also very analytical, and it can make us great researchers as well, and fast practical thinking. Mercury sextile Saturn, so Mercury here and sextile to Saturn, you can see that's 3 degrees, so that's 60 degrees apart. That's worth knowing these angles here, because this is what we see in the aspects when we're looking at them here. And this gives us a balanced approach to problem solving, so that's really useful to us. Mercury is square Pluto at this time, which will uncover some stuff that's going on. I'm not going to mention what. I think there's going to be, in my view, kind of worms opened when people start speaking. And I think sometimes what happens is when people are called out, you know, when we look at the shadow in humanity and we see what's going on, it's sort of, when I look at things, if I think back to the knowledge that we have, you know, around the fall of Rome and how these things occur, and knowledge travels and what people say, and it's with artificial intelligence at the moment, AI, news travels very quickly, and what is true and what isn't true is really depending on our subjective experience. You know, sometimes we're deciding what's true without the full knowledge, and also people may have knowledge that will come to bring things to light that we're not aware of. And the shadow, what the shadow does is that we deny what's in ourselves and then we project that onto other people. So there are things that we may judge others on that we have done ourselves, but we deny that, and we want to, you know, bring people down maybe, or make them bad or judge them because we consider that they are bad and wrong, and we don't look at where we have got this shadow going on in us that's equivalent to something, you know, that's maybe in the public eye. I think I'm saying enough there. The other aspects that are going on, I think this is quite a lovely chart, in my view. We've got Venus sextile Neptune. So Venus here is sextile to Neptune, which is up here. So you can see the degrees. That's again 20. I don't know if I just said that, but Mars trine Saturn is helpful because this helps us to do things without feeling overtired, but it can make us consistent. And also, this is great if you have this, you know, when we have these aspects in our own chart, like if you have, as an example, if you have the other way around, Saturn trine to your natal Mars, then it's going to move a lot slower, you know. We've got Jupiter in an octile. I won't go into that because that's a 45-degree angle. We've got the node conjunct Mercury, and this gives a lot of intelligence and also a good orientation of life. It also is where we're searching in the background for other people's motives, and also where we can accept criticism easily, and we do not avoid conflicts. And I actually have this in my chart. The node is conjunct my Mercury and my Sun, and the node is also conjunct my Mars as well in my 6th house. So it's quite interesting when we look at our own aspects. And what else have we got? I'm nearly there on this. So then the other thing is Venus trine Pluto. It's where we can experience relationships very deeply. And it's also, it can give rise to conflict as well, Venus trine Pluto. And it's to do, it activates sexuality and sex appeal. You think Venus, our inner needs, and Pluto, transformation. And also we have the node conjunct Mercury, I've done. Node sextile Mars, you see there, the node is sextile to Mars. And this is also where this aspect gives us a lot of vigor and determination and helps us to achieve goals. And the node sextile Saturn, you see here, node sextile to Saturn. So you see this chart is quite lovely. It has got a T-square going up here with the nodes to Pluto, which is it's very interesting in evolutionary astrology. We look to the node, the resolution node, it's called. So you stand on the planet, you look inwards. So if you're standing there, you would look inwards towards the chart, and the resolution node is here. So it's something from the past, something we're trying to figure out in humanity, because this is happening all year. It will get closer and closer as these nodes move into 0 degree. Pluto will go retrograde. I'll show you on the solar fire. And then the node square Pluto, so it's where it can give us great and fascinating energy and leads us to a focal point. So it's going to lead us to a focal point, which we very much need. I think we've all been lost in space somewhat over the last couple of years. And it's also where we can experience power and powerlessness, and we encounter our own shadow. But when we do this, it helps us to overcome our life challenges, because it can remove untruths, it can remove fear, it can show us where our power is, and it can also be, on the downside, it can cause a lot of inattention, because if we're not willing to look at the shadow and we're projecting it all onto outside ourselves, then it can cause feelings also of being obsessed, and it can pull us in different directions. So we've got some work to do there as humanity. I'm going to read the Libra keywords. So here you go. Beautiful Libra full moon. And we have with this, it's to do with the other. It holds the 7th house traditionally. It's to do with other. It's social. It's objective awareness. It's relationships. It's also where we have comparison. It's others and others' needs. It's projection as well. There's nothing wrong with projection, I have to say. It's just a human thing, but it's where we watch ourselves and we're able to look at where we project unnecessarily. So it helps us to learn, yeah? So it's where we could please others, wanting to please others. It's our listening. It's extremes. The ruler of Libra is Venus. So if you look here, we've got the moon in 16 degrees there, and Venus is the ruler, which is currently at 24 degrees of Taurus. It can be extremes, this moon, it's polarity. It can be denial. It can be the mask as well, maybe being nice when we don't really want to be nice, or, just also relativity, relatedness. It can be codependency. It can be where we flirt. It's beauty. It's surface and shallow as well. It can be half truths. It can be where we lose our boundaries a bit. It's social grace. It's the partner, intimacy, the philanderer, idealism. It's our appearance. And, again, Venus comes into that aspect. So you can see this is where you would get horoscopes.astro-seat.com. Then if I look at this, I'm going to show you my chart. I'm going to make sure I'm on this right page. And what I'm going to do, if you look, this is today's date, which is the 5th here. It says the 4th on this. So what we have is that the moon will be moving into, the sun is here, and the moon for me is going to be at 16 degrees. So I go 5, 10, 15, 16. So it's literally just on the cusp of my 10th and 11th. So I could apply it to both houses there. The sun is in my 4th currently. And then what I have is that if we take a chart and we look at, traditionally we would have Aries, we would have Taurus, Gemini. So they hold true for what the houses mean. The 1st house, 2nd house, 3rd house, 4th house is Cancer. So if you look at my 7th house, which would traditionally be Libra, I've got my sun and moon there. I've also got Jupiter there in the sign of Cancer, but it's intercepted, you can see. It's just moving into my 8th house. Mars is moving into my 8th house. So we can see with this, then what is that sun what is the moon doing for me actually there, which is up here, which will be 16 degrees as we know. But what it will be doing on that day for me is that it will be sextile to my Pluto. So when it happens, it will be here. It will be in a sextile to my Pluto because my Pluto is 15 degrees and so is the Uranus. It will be semi-sextile to Uranus, I've said that. So it will be in opposition to my Venus when it's there because my Venus is 18 degrees. It will also be biquintal to Mercury, which is quite beautiful. It's creativity. And if I show you, it will be here. So my Mercury is here. And I think that's 144 degrees. You see here, my Mercury there in the 6th house. I've got the moon trining my moon, which is beautiful because my moon is 17 degrees and it will be 16. So it's going to do a lovely trine. So this is a nice chart for me as well. I do have the sun in conjunct to Pluto, but I think I can handle it. And because I have for most of my life, I think we're all handling these planets. The sun is also biquintal to my Neptune, which is another 144 degrees. Sun there to my Neptune, and conjunct Venus, which is quite nice. Hey, sun conjunct Venus. So just there. And then the sun sextile to the moon, and then the moon is sextile to my fortune, and then the sun is also. So the reason I'm showing you this, because it sounds like I'm just going on about my chart, but it gives you an idea then to look for these aspects. But if you do put in your chart details to astro-seek.com, you put your details in, you're gonna, all of those aspects will show up for you quite easily. So I encourage you to go over to that page. Now what I shall do is we're going to do a new share and go to the emanated page. I'm going to get my spotlight here, and I'm going to make sure I'm sharing the right page so you can see it all move. So I love solar fire. This is at the full moon, and this is UK time, and you can see the aspects here are much busier because I've got more planets, I've got asteroids that I include, which I'm learning about in my chart. So if we go back to the moon and we look at the moon in Libra, and I'm going to read a little bit from Spiritual Astrology, A Path to Awakening, Jan Spiller and Karen McCoy. It's quite a good book. I'll put the link in the video on YouTube. And the moon in Libra, the unconscious expression is when we, let's have a look here actually, before I do that, moon in Libra. So we have our consciousness and we have our unconsciousness. We have conscious acts when we, as we go through life and we gain wisdom and we have experiences, then when we look back on things, we become less unconscious and things are brought to the conscious, which is the work of Jung, and it's looking at the shadow. So the unconscious expression is that we may not, we may expect others to notice our sensitivity. And with this, we kind of have emotional touchiness if we're confronted. This is where we're unconscious. We don't want to be confronted. We may compromise our own direction and sense of fairness in order to appease others. So think about that with this full moon. Are we appeasing others just because we're compromising our own sense of direction? And also expecting others to reciprocate by meeting our needs for stability. So are we then, appeasing people just so they meet our needs rather than being who we truly are? Wearing a mask, yeah? That would be that. And it can be, if manipulations don't work, this is the unconscious aspects, okay? We may revert to an abrasive attitude of independence and carelessness, or give vent to wounded feelings to gain attention. And it's where if we depend on others to be compatible with us, we can easily be thrown off center. So, our expectations, I'm not going to read all of that, there's a bit more, but the conscious expression is when we take responsibility for creating the internal balance that we need to feel in close relationships. We begin to notice that compromising and expecting others to create peacefulness and fairness simply has not worked. And I think we can agree with that, that we need to take on board that we have this ability to create our own sense of peace. And sometimes we're thrown off balance. And at that time, we can do things like speak to our inner child and ask our inner child what it needs. You know, am I hungry? Do I need a break? Do I need to, do something for myself rather than expecting others? It's also where those who are not attuned to our sense of fair play may be unable to treat us fairly, and this, there can be a feeling of injustice, or that we may not feel good about something as well. And this gives us strength and completedness in our own direction. So our best bet is to pledge ourselves to a goal outside the relationship. So often we get involved in relationships and then we're pledging, it's all about the relationship, which is the codependency part of the Libra archetype. Not that I'm not saying Libra is, we've all got Libra in our charts, so don't think this is mentioning just Libra. If we look at my chart, my 7th house is ultimately Gemini, but it has Libra, their 7th house. And then if you have Pluto Libra, if your generation, and then we're going to have planets in Libra as well, some of us. So it works, it's an integration of the whole chart. It's not just one thing. So with this, we can commit to our own integrity and our direction by trusting the outcome will be for the highest good, and often we have to come to that understanding because after we've lived some life and some experience, we begin to see what is for our highest good, even though at the time it may not have seemed to be that way. So let's see now. I'm going to move this chart forward a bit and I'm going to show you Mercury when it goes retrograde. So you've got Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, Chiron. Chiron, the wounding, Chiron's sun, where we're becoming aware of our wounding. And we may have been feeling that as the sun moves over that because it's not quite there. If I go back one day, you can see the sun's crossing over Chiron in the next 24 hours. And it will apply for a few days before and a few days afterwards. So if you've been feeling a bit wounded, it's just be gentle with yourself, because I think also Jupiter can bring in some good stuff, but it can also make things harder sometimes as well, depending on how that's used. So Jupiter in Aries is where we want to inspire others. So we may be inspiring others and being teaching or, wanting to help people heal. The Jupiter in Aries is where we are freedom loving and spontaneous and we want truth. And it's also where we have the potential to be quite philosophical as well. And we have Mercury, as we see here, in Taurus. And Mercury in Taurus is, where we can have money-making ideas in the 2nd house. It's not in the 2nd house, so let's read depending on your chart, it's going to be in a different place. But here we can have an importance on traditional knowledge. We learn in more of a slow, methodological and hands-on manner. And we can stick to our own old ideas and may have fear learning anything new. This is Mercury. I have Mercury in Taurus. So sometimes I like to do things, I like things to stay the same in some ways. It works differently for each of us, but also depending on the aspects to our chart. So you would also look at that when you're looking at your chart. You're going to be looking at aspects as well, not just the house and the sign it's in. What is that doing? That's what we're interested in. We've got the North Node. So I've been through this already. Venus is in the sign of Taurus, quite beautiful. And Venus in Taurus is reliability and romance go hand in hand, if you think about Taurus. And also it's a slow, steady approach. And it's where we want solid and secure. And it can be where we want, we enjoy sensuality. And that can be in a myriad of ways. It can be in our foods, our clothing, our surroundings. and it can, you know, make us a bit more reliable sorting out finances as well. And it's hard for people right now, you know, there's a lot of shifting going on and we don't know where it's going to all lead at the moment. So it's a wait and see game. So this is the 5th of April. You can see that the moon is 3 degrees there. So I'm going to go forward again. And if I go now, watch Mercury here, because we're going to go days ahead and we're going to see when it hits into retrograde. 10, 11, 12, Mercury, 13, 14, 15, oh, they're stations. So that's what we were looking for. So it stations on the 21st. So this is going to stay, this is going to go retrograde a few days after the eclipse that we're having. So that will be interesting to look at in another video. So I think that's it for today. I do enjoy the full moon. It's a time of a culmination of things. Yeah, it's a good time to being in Libra. It's a good time to be out there doing all sorts of things. And then also when you think the sun is in the sign of not there, but it's in the sign of Aries at the moment. So that's quite empowering for us as well. If I go back to today, actually what I want to do, see that node, I want to see when the node moves into the sign of Aries. So let's go months before I do this. So 1, 2, 3. So we have in July, it will be moving into the sign of, let's see what day it is as well. Why not? So the day that the node shifts into Aries, because it's been, at this point, it would have been a year and a half. July seems a long way away, but it's not. It goes so quickly if we think it's already April. So we must guide ourselves how we use our time. So that's it. So 18th of April, 17th, 18th is the time that the node will move into the sign of Aries. And that is with the North Node in Aries, it's where it's a quest to become assertive, self-empowered, and it can give us a tendency to be indecisive, also considering, you know, considering the needs of others. And it's where we need to discover a sense of our own identity and take initiative with our own projects. And we have that work to do ahead because there's lots of changes in the workplace for people all over the world, and with the financial chaos that's going on as well. Somebody I suggest you watch called Financial Rebellion, a great woman, Catherine Austin Fitz, Financial Rebellion. You can check her out. She's got a free show that runs each week on Thursdays currently, I think. And it's fantastic knowledge for understanding some of the financial complications of what's going on right now. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you. I'll be back. Speak to you soon. I'll be back soon. Catch you later.